Welcome to Cryptid Monologues. Let's dive into a world where myths meet imagination. Here we unravel chilling tales of cryptids, Bigfoot, Wendigos, dogmen, skinwalkers, and more. These stories are crafted to ignite your imagination. These stories are purely fictitious, and names and/or events are purely coincidental. If you like these kind of stories, please give a like and subscribe. Click on the notification bell to stay up to date. Thanks for listening. Let's get into it. The Piney Shadow by Cryptid Monologues. Charlie Dunbar had lived a long life in the woods, but he'd never heard silence like this. The sun had just dipped below the pine canopy, bleeding orange into the sky as Duke led the way down a path they both knew like the backs of their paws. The forest usually sang at this hour, crickets, cicadas, the low hoots of barred owls waking up, but tonight the woods were holding their breath. Charlie stopped mid-stride. Duke froze a beat later, ears swiveling, then laying back as a deep growl bubbled up in his throat. Something was out there. Charlie listened, not just with his ears, but with his bones, the way old woodsmen do when they know something's off. The air felt heavier, like just before a summer tornado. Then it came, a low crack of a branch, followed by 3 slow, deliberate footsteps that sunk deep into the forest floor. He raised his lantern, sweeping the light across the dense thicket ahead. 2 golden eyes blinked back at him. They weren't the eyes of a deer, too far apart. Not a bear either, too level, too intelligent. Charlie's breath caught. For a moment, time bent around him, like he'd stepped out of reality and into one of those backwoods ghost stories folks told down at the bait shop. Then the thing turned and slipped into the woods like a whisper. He stood there for a full minute after it was gone. Duke didn't bark. He just leaned against Charlie's leg, shaking like a wet leaf in autumn. Charlie didn't sleep that night. Not because he was scared, not exactly, but because the one thing he'd always believed about these woods, that he knew them inside and out, had just been proven wrong. The morning light streamed in through the cabin's screen door, painting golden stripes across the dusty floorboards. Charlie sat at the kitchen table with a cold cup of coffee in one hand and an open field journal in the other. His fingers hovered over the page, pen tip tapping the margin. "Big," he muttered, staring out the window toward the woods. "Too damn big." He glanced at Duke, who lay curled under the table, head resting on his paws. The old hound hadn't barked once all night, just whimpered in his sleep like he was dreaming of something he'd rather forget. Charlie finally scribbled down a few words: golden eyes, maybe 8 feet, bipedal, silent movement, no smell today. He paused, then crossed out the last line and wrote, "Wrong, swamp stink, like wet moss and meat." He closed the book and stood, stretching out the stiffness in his legs. Something had changed last night. It wasn't just the encounter, it was the woods themselves, the silence, the way every living thing seemed to go still. Grabbing his pack, he slid his .357 into the side holster and clipped Duke's leash to his collar, more out of habit than concern. Then they set off down the trail, back to the spot. The woods were brighter in the daylight, but Charlie's unease hadn't faded. As he approached the place where they'd seen the eyes, he slowed. The leaves crunched differently here, heavier, deeper impressions underfoot. Duke sniffed the ground with interest, but didn't growl this time. Then Charlie saw them. In the soft soil near a patch of pine straw, 2 massive footprints had sunken nearly 3 inches into the earth. Each foot was at least 16 inches long and half again as wide. No claws, no boot tread, just 5 thick, rounded toes like a human, if a human weighed 500 pounds. He squatted down and traced the edge with one weathered finger. "Jesus," he whispered. Duke whined softly, ears pinned back. Charlie stood and scanned the trees. Above, about 7 feet up, a pine branch had been snapped clean through, the fresh wood bright and exposed. not broken by wind, no storm had hit recently, and there was no sign of rot or insect damage. Whatever had broken that branch had done it with a hand that reached high. He felt it again, that pressure in the air. Not fear exactly, something older, instinctual, like he was being watched by something that knew these woods better than he ever would. Then, from deeper in the trees, came a low, rhythmic knocking. 3 solid hits, like someone rapping a log with a club. Knock, knock, knock. Charlie froze. He'd heard wood knocks before, hogs busting through thickets, maybe a woodpecker if you were far off. But this had purpose. A pattern, a message. He turned toward the sound, eyes narrowing. That's not wind. He considered heading in that direction, but the voice of someone long dead rang in his memory. Don't chase a mystery, Charlie. Let it come to you. His wife's words. Wise then, wise now. Still, he took out his phone and took a photo of the prints. He might not believe in stories, but he believed in evidence. He also believed in being prepared. That meant more than a 357. It meant not being alone next time. As he and Duke turned back toward the cabin, he made a decision. He'd call Jessie Ramos. She was new to the region, working on some kind of thesis project out by the wildlife reserve, but she had a good head on her shoulders and an open mind. He remembered her asking him about sightings, half joking at the time. Maybe now was the time to take her questions seriously, because something was out there in the East Texas woods, and it wasn't done watching. Jessie Ramos had never liked the phrase off the grid. It sounded like something you said before getting murdered in a documentary. But here she was, 2 weeks into her fieldwork in the Piney Woods of East Texas, alone, 30 miles from the nearest town, surrounded by creatures that howled at things she couldn't see. She adjusted the lens on her trail camera and peered into the thicket beyond the tree line. The heat had already begun to rise, and the air hung with the thick, resinous smell of pine sap and damp leaves. Her shirt clung to her back, and her notebook was speckled with mosquito blood. Still, she was exactly where she wanted to be. The pine barrens near Caddo Lake had long fascinated her, an intersection of species both documented and rumored. Her thesis wasn't about Bigfoot or swamp monsters, but her funding proposal had included a paragraph on cryptid folklore and regional biodiversity patterns, which had made her advisor roll his eyes and sign off without much more fuss. But the rumors had stuck with her, especially after what she'd found 2 days ago. Jessie stood, brushing dirt from her knees, and glanced again at the base of the pine tree. The bark was scratched in long, even lines, too high for any known predator in the region. There were no claw tips, no broken branches beneath it. It looked purposeful, like something had marked its territory. Her trail cameras had picked up motion the previous night, something large moving just at the edge of the infrared range. Too big for a deer. The shape wasn't right. And the timestamp? Just after 2:17 a.m., during the deadest part of the night. She hadn't slept since. Jessie clicked the camera housing closed and slung her backpack over one shoulder. She didn't scare easily, but something had her rattled. A long, drawn-out whoop echoed through the trees behind her. She froze. It wasn't a coyote. She knew coyotes. It was deeper, fuller, vocal. Not a mechanical sound, and it had come from no more than 100 yards to the north. Her pulse spiked. She slowly turned and scanned the woods. Nothing moved, not a bird, not a squirrel, just trees, tall, dark, and watching. Then a voice broke the silence, low, gruff, and close. Don't move. She jumped and spun, heart nearly exploding. A man stepped into the clearing, one hand raised. Easy, he said. Name's Charlie Dunbar. I'm not here to hurt you. Jessie narrowed her eyes, stepping back. How do I know that? Charlie gave a small smile. 'Cause I brought coffee. He lifted a battered thermos and gave it a little shake. Duke patted beside him, tail wagging once before settling again, ears twitching. Jessie exhaled slowly. She recognized the name, Charlie Dunbar. former game warden. Lived out here longer than anyone, according to the locals. The kind of man who knew what was supposed to live in these woods and what wasn't. "What do you want?" she asked. Charlie's smile faded. "To show you something, and maybe ask you a thing or two." Jessie folded her arms. "What kind of something?" "Tracks, hair samples, maybe a sound you just heard. You're not the only one out here with questions." She hesitated, then nodded slowly. "You've seen it." "I saw something," Charlie said. "Big, on two legs, eyes like lantern glass." He looked over his shoulder toward the thickest part of the woods. "And if I'm right, it's watching both of us right now." The trail narrowed as the pine canopy grew thicker, turning daylight into a shifting green haze. Charlie led the way, his lantern from the night before now swapped for a high-beam flashlight strapped to his belt. Duke stayed close, ears perked and nose low. Jessie followed a few paces behind, scribbling into a field notebook even as she watched the shadows move around them. Every few minutes she glanced up, her instincts tugging at her like a hand on the back of her shirt. "You're sure it came this way?" she asked. Charlie didn't look back. Not sure of anything anymore. But the signs are here. He stopped beside a wide poplar with two parallel gouges running 6 feet up its trunk. Not claw marks, cleaner, almost like they'd been made with a sharpened tool or a wide thumb pressed hard into the bark. Jessie crouched, touched the grooves. "This is fresh." "Yesterday," Charlie said. "Before the storm rolled in, ground was soft, perfect for tracks." They moved deeper into the woods. The air changed, cooler, wetter, as if the forest itself was exhaling something old. It smelled like moss, rot, and faintly of rust. Then they found it, a clearing, nearly 30 feet wide, ringed by trees bent at unnatural angles. Some were snapped clean, not fallen, snapped, mid-trunk. In the center was a rough structure, a low dome made from woven branches, mud, pine needles, and animal hides. It wasn't a cave, but it wasn't just a pile of debris either. It had shape. It had intention. Jessie's breath caught. "Is that a nest?" Charlie nodded. "Found it 2 nights ago. Didn't go in. Figured I'd wait till I had a second pair of eyes." "You see anything like this in your studies?" "No," she said. "Not even close." She stepped closer, flashlight sweeping the interior. A pile of bones, mostly deer, some raccoon, was stacked neatly near the back. Some had been cracked open for marrow. Others were clean, arranged. Then she spotted something else, something that didn't belong. "Charlie," she said, voice tight. "Look." Half buried under a pile of leaves was a weathered hiking boot. Still laced, still filled with something. Charlie crouched and carefully pulled it free. It wasn't old. The leather was scuffed, the sole torn, but it couldn't have been more than a few months in the elements. There were initials written inside in faded marker. R.T. Jessie swallowed hard. That hiker that went missing back in March, Rory Talbot, he was wearing boots like that. Charlie stood slowly. "Yeah, I remember." For a moment, neither of them spoke. Then Duke started growling. Not barking, not whining. Growling, a low, rumbling sound that came from deep in his chest. He faced the tree line, ears pinned back, tail stiff. Charlie turned. "It's here." Jessie flicked off her flashlight and backed toward him. The forest ahead was dense, almost impenetrable, but there was movement, subtle but undeniable, a shadow too thick to be just shade, a shifting of leaves without wind. Then, from beyond the trees came a sound that froze the blood in their veins, a long guttural moan, not a roar, not a howl, a warning. Charlie raised a hand. "Back away." Slow. They did, step by step. Neither spoke. Duke stayed close, teeth bared. The moan faded into the silence. After what felt like hours, they reached the edge of the clearing. Jessie finally exhaled. "That was it, wasn't it?" she whispered. "Watching us." Charlie nodded, eyes scanning the trees. "We're in its home now," he said, "and it knows we found the nest." The sky was steel gray by the time they made it back to Charlie's cabin. Thunderheads were building on the horizon, another spring storm crawling in off the Sabine, and the wind was picking up, bringing the smell of wet pine and ozone. Jessie sat at the kitchen table, thumbing through photos on her tablet. She'd uploaded everything: the prints, the snapped trees, the nest. She zoomed in on the boot. RT. I emailed it to a colleague at the university, she said. Just the structure. Told him it was some kind of nest found during an animal study. He didn't believe it was built by any known mammal, said it looked almost hominid. Charlie poured 2 mugs of coffee and sat across from her. I don't like where this is going, he said. That boot belonged to a missing person. If the law finds out we're sitting on it, they'll think we're covering something up. Jessie nodded. So we bring the sheriff in. Charlie raised an eyebrow. Buck Harmon's a friend, good man, but he doesn't like talk of monsters. Not since the Barker boy disappeared back in '09. I read about that, Jessie said. Never found the body. Never found anything but a torn jacket and a bloody shoe, Charlie said. Buck shut the case fast, said it was a cougar, but that wasn't no cat that did it, not by a damn sight. Jessie leaned forward. Then we show him what we have, let him decide. Charlie hesitated, then nodded. All right, but we keep it measured. Just the facts, tracks, nest, boot, leave the rest out for now. An hour later, Sheriff Buck Harmon pulled up in a dust-streaked county SUV, wide-brimmed hat low over his eyes. He climbed out slowly, grumbling as his boots hit the gravel. Charlie, he said, you dragged me out here for a boot and some broken twigs. I'm taking it out of your fishing license. Charlie smirked. Ain't got one, Buck. You know I fish illegal. Jessie stepped forward. Sheriff Harmon, I'm Dr. Jessie Ramos, wildlife biologist. Buck eyed her, his look unreadable. You the one from Sam Houston? Texas State. I'm here on a field grant. Charlie thought you should see this. They brought him inside. Buck looked at the photos in silence, flipping slowly through them like he was looking for a trick in the images. When he saw the boot, he stopped. Rory Talbot, he muttered. Search and rescue scoured that whole basin. Not this far in, Charlie said. This is past the old Moonshine Trail, near Birch Hollow. You'd need a damn compass and a bloodhound to find it. Buck set the tablet down. And you're telling me this is, what? A nest? A den? A structure, Jessie said. Deliberately built. Whatever made it isn't just big, it's intelligent. Buck looked between them both. I knew you'd stir this up again, Charlie. I didn't stir anything, Charlie said, voice low. It came to me. Buck paced the cabin, rubbing his jaw. The storm outside rumbled, closer now. I'll tell you what happens next, Buck said. You file a formal report. I take it up the chain. Maybe DPS sends a couple boots down here to check it out. Word gets out, then we've got TV crews, ghost hunters, half the state's lunatics trampling through the woods. You want that? No, Charlie said. I want the truth. Buck stopped pacing, looked at both of them. You think it's real? Charlie nodded. Jessie did too. Buck exhaled. Then I'm going to ask you for something I don't ask often. He looked at Charlie. Let it lie. Charlie's face hardened. Can't do that. It's already moving closer. Nest was too clean, fresh. It's hunting, or warning. Buck looked toward the window as a gust of wind blew pine needles against the glass. Then you better pray it stays in the woods, he said. Then he turned and walked out, the screen door slamming shut behind him. The storm broke just after midnight. Rain slammed against the cabin's tin roof like fistfuls of gravel. Wind howled through the eaves. Charlie sat at the kitchen table, shotgun across his lap, eyes locked on the dark tree line beyond the front porch. Jessie stood near the window, watching flashes of lightning throw long, crooked shadows across the yard. Duke whimpered once, ears twitching. He wouldn't go near the door. Something's out there, Charlie muttered. It's watching us again. Jessie nodded slowly. I feel it, like static under my skin. Suddenly, a sharp crack echoed outside. Wood splitting, not thunder. Charlie was on his feet instantly. That came from the back. They moved together through the cabin, stepping into the utility room. Rain blurred the small window. Another flash of lightning revealed it. a massive figure, motionless at the edge of the trees. Too tall, shoulders hunched, eyes glowing faintly gold even through the rain. Then it was gone. Jessie's breath caught. "Tell me you saw that." I did. A new sound rose in the storm. A scream. It wasn't human. Not quite. It started low, vibrating the glass, then climbed into a shriek that stabbed the night like a knife. It came from the direction of the river. Charlie grabbed his coat. "That's Birch Hollow. Something's happening." Jessie hesitated. "We can't go out in this." "We have to. That wasn't just noise. That was pain." They loaded into Charlie's old truck, headlights barely cutting through the downpour. The wheels slid in the mud, fishtailing as they crawled down the logging road. Trees whipped in the wind like skeletal arms. As they neared the river bend, Duke began barking uncontrollably, trying to leap out the window. Then they saw the light, a flickering orange glow beyond the trees. "Is that fire?" Jessie asked. Charlie slammed the brakes. "Camp." They ran through the brush, flashlights bouncing, mud sucking at their boots. The camp was small, just a lean-to, a cooler, and a half-burned fire pit. And blood. Slick, dark, and fresh, smeared across the leaves. A sleeping bag torn open, foam stuffing spilling out like guts. A trail of red led deeper into the woods, drag marks. Jessie turned away, gagging. Charlie knelt beside a shredded backpack. "Game tags," he muttered. "Poachers." He stood slowly, flashlight sweeping the trees. Then, 20 feet away, carved into the bark of a live oak, was a handprint. Massive, deep, still dripping, a warning. Jessie's voice was a whisper. "It's not afraid of us anymore." Charlie's eyes narrowed. "No, it's claiming territory." Behind them, Duke began barking again, this time at something above them. Charlie and Jessie spun around, lights shooting up into the trees. Hanging in the branches, 10 feet off the ground, was a bloodied hat. Below it, the top half of a hunting bow, snapped clean through. Jessie stepped back. "That's a message." Charlie stared into the woods, rain pouring down his face, mouth a grim line. "It's not just a creature anymore," he said. "It's sending signals." A new howl echoed through the forest, closer this time, deep, rumbling, like it was inside the trees themselves. Jessie turned to Charlie. "What do we do?" He looked at her, eyes grim. "We stop pretending this thing is just passing through." The rain didn't let up until dawn. The world outside Charlie's cabin was gray and sodden, pines dripping steadily as if the trees themselves had been wrung out. Jessie sat by the wood stove, wrapped in a wool blanket, staring at the map they'd unrolled on the table. Red pen marked the nest site. A new line, jagged and angry, traced the bloody trail at Birch Hollow. Charlie poured black coffee into a chipped enamel mug and set it in front of her. He didn't speak. Neither of them had slept. Then, tires crunched on wet gravel. Jessie stood quickly as a familiar SUV pulled into view. Sheriff Buck Harmon climbed out, grim-faced, a shotgun slung casually across his shoulder and a hard, unsettled look in his eyes. He stepped into the cabin without knocking, tracking mud across the floor. "You didn't tell me," he said. Jessie frowned. "Tell you what?" Buck pulled something from his coat pocket and tossed it on the table. A piece of torn canvas soaked in blood, part of the sleeping bag they'd found. "Dispatch got a call at 3 a.m. from a guy named Wendell Harris. Said his brother was camping near Birch Hollow, never came home. Sent me the GPS from a phone ping. Matches the spot you took me off the grid." Charlie's jaw tensed. "That's what we were trying to avoid." Buck nodded slowly, the weight settling on him. "I didn't believe it. Not when you said it. Not when I saw the pictures." He looked at them both, eyes tired. "But I went out there. I followed the blood. I saw the tree." Jessie leaned forward. And now I've got a missing person. No body, a handprint the size of a dinner plate, and enough blood to drown a goat," he said. "I can't file that under predator attack anymore." A long silence passed. "What do we do?" Jessie asked. Buck exhaled through his nose and sat down hard in the chair across from her. "We go official, carefully, quietly. I've got a contact at the DPS, old friend. Former Wildlife Tactical Response. He owes me a favor. No paperwork, no press. I can get him down here by tonight, Charlie nodded. We'll need thermal, drones, tranquilizer option too if we want it alive. Jessie blinked. Alive? Charlie looked at her. If it's intelligent, Jessie, it's not just an animal. We don't know what this thing is, but it thinks, it plans, maybe it communicates. Buck glanced at them both. And it doesn't want us here. He stood, pulled a folded map from his coat, and laid it next to theirs. I marked every reported incident in the last 15 years that didn't make the news. Strange disappearances, tracks, shouts in the night, they all fall within this pattern. He traced a rough oval through the forest with his finger. Jessie stared. It's a perimeter. A hunting ground, Charlie said quietly. Buck nodded. Or a warning zone. They stared at the map in silence. Rain pattered on the roof. Then Duke stood up from the rug, ears perked, and growled low. Again, Jessie moved to the window and looked out into the tree line. There, just beyond the edge of the yard, something was standing, barely visible in the mist, not moving, just watching. Charlie raised the shotgun slowly. No sudden moves, he whispered. The figure stepped back, so smooth it was like it melted into the trees. Gone. Jessie's voice was thin. It knows we're planning. Buck clicked the safety off his shotgun. Then we better be ready before it decides to strike first. By late afternoon, the sky had cleared. The rain left behind a forest heavy with mist and the low, steady drip of water falling from every leaf and limb. It was quiet. Too quiet. Even the birds seemed to be holding their breath. Charlie stood on the porch, watching the road. Jessie sat on the steps with Duke curled up beside her, his ears still twitching toward every movement in the woods. Then, a low hum. Engine. A blacked-out Suburban rolled around the bend, tires crunching over gravel. It came to a smooth stop beside Buck's cruiser, and the engine cut. Out stepped a man in his 50s, broad-shouldered and lean, with gray stubble and a sharp, alert gaze. He wore dark tactical gear, no insignia, just a patch on the shoulder. TRU, Tactical Response Unit. Buck came out to meet him. Charlie, Jessie, this is Heath Nolan. We worked together back in my federal days. Heath gave a curt nod. Heard a lot. Saw the file. Still thought Buck was yanking my chain. Charlie handed him a folder of photos. You'll believe it when you see the nest. I already believe it, Heath said, flipping through the images. I've seen prints like these once before. Northern California, 98. 3 people disappeared, never solved. Jessie straightened. You think it's the same creature? Heath shook his head. No, but maybe the same kind. Buck crossed his arms. We're setting up a grid. Passive infrared, motion sensors, bait if we need it. You brought gear? Heath popped the Suburban's back hatch, revealing cases marked with government tags. Thermal cameras, audio sensors, portable spotlights, tranquilizing rifles. Charlie whistled. Now we're talking. They moved fast. By nightfall, they'd set up 4 infrared cameras on a perimeter around the nest site. Heath rigged an audio array in the trees, programmed to listen for low-frequency sounds most humans couldn't detect. A small blind was dug in at the edge of the clearing, camouflaged and stocked for 2. Heath laid it out as they worked. We don't provoke, we watch. If it comes close, we get it on film. If it acts hostile, we trank and track, but no cowboy stuff. Charlie grunted. This thing leaves warnings. It dismembers poachers. You sure a trank'll stop it? Heath's eyes were cold. Depends on how human it is. That night, Charlie and Heath took the first watch in the blind. Jessie and Buck monitored feeds from the cabin. The screens flickered with movement, branches swaying, small animals skittering. Then around 2 a.m., one of the mics picked something up, a moan, long, low, rising slowly into a teeth-rattling growl. Charlie sat up straight. Camera 3, movement. The thermal feed flared red, a heat signature, tall and broad, moving just outside the clearing. The shape hovered near the edge of frame, not approaching, just circling. Then came the sound again, closer this time. Jessie leaned toward the monitor. That's not just a sound, it's layered. There's a rhythm. Heath's voice came over the radio. It's vocalizing, communicating, or calling. Charlie whispered, calling to what? The feed fuzzed, static, then nothing. One by one, the cameras blinked out. Not all at once, sequentially. Heath's voice on the radio. Something's disabling them. Buck stood, grabbing his weapon. It knows we're here, and it doesn't want to be recorded. Then the power cut out completely. Darkness. Jessie reached for the lantern. Outside, in the trees, something let out a low snort. A huff of air, close, then silence. Charlie's voice crackled over the radio again. It's not alone. The forest was breathing, not the wind, not the trees, something deeper, heavier. Charlie crouched low in the blind, eyes fixed through the night vision scope of his rifle. Next to him, Heath made slow, deliberate movements as he swapped out the batteries on the thermal camera. They're circling, Heath whispered. Same formation I saw in California, flanking, testing our perimeter. Charlie's voice was grim. How many? At least 3. 1 alpha. Bigger. It's controlling the others. Jesus. Heath pulled a small handheld monitor from his pack and tapped it. Backup generators fried. That wasn't an EMP, it was sabotage. Something tore the housing open. It knew where to hit. Meanwhile, back at the cabin, Jessie worked by candlelight with Buck crouched beside her, trying to reconnect the power to the laptop that ran the camera feeds. The radio hissed with static. Charlie Heath? Do you read? Buck barked. Come in. Nothing. Jessie glanced at the window. Fog rolled over the treetops like smoke. She saw movement, brief, fast, something darting between trees just beyond the porch. Then came a knock, 3 slow taps on the front door. Not scratching, not pounding, knocking. Jessie stood frozen. Buck raised his weapon. Don't move. The doorknob jiggled, then stopped. No sound, no movement. Jessie finally whispered, It's testing us. Buck was pale, or mocking us. Out in the woods, Charlie and Heath had gone completely still. Night vision showed nothing. No heat, no motion, until Charlie felt the vibration again. A rhythmic thud, barely audible but undeniable. He mouthed, footsteps. Heath raised the tranq rifle. Hold fire, wait for visual. Then the trees ahead parted. It stepped into the clearing. Easily 9 feet tall, covered in coarse, dark hair matted with moss and rain. Broad shoulders like a bear, but its gait was upright, confident, eyes gleaming faintly yellow-green in the scope. Charlie's breath caught. That's not just an animal. The creature stopped near the broken camera. It crouched, examining it, turning it over in its massive hands like a child studying a toy. Then it looked directly at the blind. Heath went still. It sees us. The creature opened its mouth, revealing rows of flat, square teeth. It didn't growl. It grinned. And then it let out a guttural sound, not a roar, a call. From the woods behind them, 2 more shapes emerged. Smaller, but still towering, flanking the alpha. One carried something in its hand, a dripping cloth bag. Charlie's eyes widened. That's the poacher's gear, Heath whispered. It's showing us, marking territory, warning us away. Charlie lifted his rifle. You still want it alive? Heath hesitated. Then the smaller one threw the bag. It slammed into a tree next to the blind with a wet, meaty sound. A metal tin rolled free and clinked to a stop. Charlie reached out and pulled it in, opened it. Inside, a severed human hand, fingers curled around a GPS beacon. Heath's face turned to stone. This just became a rescue op. Then all 3 creatures turned, disappearing into the trees without a sound. Jessie's voice crackled back to life on the radio. Charlie, Heath, we've got movement up here. Something's walking the porch. Charlie keyed the mic. Get away from the windows now. He turned to Heath, eyes blazing. We're not just being watched. We're being studied. Morning came in a haze of pale sunlight and dripping trees. Mist clung low to the ground like the memory of a nightmare no one could shake. The forest was silent, drained. No birds, no movement. Jessie sipped from a tin mug of lukewarm coffee, staring at the GPS unit they'd recovered from the tin the night before. The severed hand had been wrapped and stored in a cooler. waiting for the authorities if they survived long enough to report it. Across the room, Heath hunched over a map on the kitchen table, drawing lines from each camera site to last known points of contact. Buck stood beside him, flipping through pages of old ranger logs. Charlie sat on the porch steps, shotgun leaning beside him, Duke resting his chin on Charlie's boot like he wouldn't let him out of his sight again. "We're not safe here," Heath said flatly, pointing to the blind on the map. "We were flanked. And that was just a test." Jessie looked up. "You think they'll come back?" "They will, but not to observe, not next time," Charlie nodded. "They're protecting something." Heath tapped the table. "The nest. I think it's bigger than we thought. You said it felt empty when you found it, right?" Jessie nodded. Heath stared out the window. "That wasn't their home. That was a satellite, a lookout post." Buck leaned on the table, jaw tight. "We follow the trail, full gear, drones, tranks, body cams, live relay to a backup drive here. We go in, get whatever evidence we can, and get out." Jessie raised an eyebrow. "What if we don't come back?" Heath didn't blink. "Then someone needs to know what happened. Someone needs to find the drive." Charlie glanced toward the woods. "You said you saw something like this before, in California. What happened to the people who went in?" Heath was quiet for a long moment. Then, only one made it out, and he never spoke again. A heavy silence fell. Buck finally broke it. "We move at noon. We go quiet. No firepower unless we're forced. Priority is observation, documentation. Get in, get out. Minimal footprint." Jessie crossed her arms. "We'll never find the nest on foot. It's too well hidden." Heath pulled a hard case from his duffel and opened it, revealing a compact quad drone with thermal and LiDAR sensors. "We're not going in blind." Outside, Duke growled. Charlie stepped onto the porch. The forest had shifted. The air had weight to it, like they were being watched again, but from farther away. He turned back inside. "We move fast, we move smart," Heath nodded, "and we finish it." Jessie pulled on her gear, strapping on a GoPro, her hands trembling slightly. If we find them, what's the end game?" Buck looked at her. "Proof," he said, "and survival." They loaded up. Trank rifles, headsets, thermal optics, field packs, batteries, and a flare kit. Heath checked the drone battery one last time, then launched it into the air. On the monitor, the forest sprawled below them, layers of ancient green, low ridges, creeks winding like veins. The drone swept north, following the trail left by the three figures that had flanked them the night before. Suddenly, heat signatures lit up. 4, no, 5. Heath zoomed in. They were moving low to the ground, silent as mist. Jessie leaned in. "Where are they going?" Charlie whispered. "They're circling back, toward us." Heath killed the drone feed and turned to the others. "We leave now." They moved out at 12:07 p.m. sharp. The forest had a strange weight to it, quiet but not empty. The kind of silence you feel more than hear, a pressure in the air, a warning in your bones. Buck took point, shotgun slung across his back and a trank rifle in hand. Jessie followed close behind, head on a swivel, drone monitor strapped to her forearm. Charlie and Heath brought up the rear, Duke padding silently at Charlie's heel. They followed the ridgeline northwest, where the drone had tracked the heat signatures, creatures slipping like phantoms through the undergrowth. Jessie whispered, "Still nothing on audio. No birds, no squirrels. Even the bugs are gone." Charlie scanned the tree line, like the forest's holding its breath. They descended into a hollow thick with ferns and black pines. Mist clung to the ground. Visibility dropped, trees narrowed in around them like ribs in a chest. That's when Duke froze. Ears back, hackles up. Charlie reached out. "What is it, boy?" Then they heard it. A sharp, wet crack. Jessie spun. "Tree branch?" Heath shook his head. "That wasn't wood." Then came a second sound. A whistle, short, high-pitched. It echoed from above, bouncing through the trees in a way that made the hair on Jessie's neck stand up. Another whistle answered, deeper this time, on the opposite side of the ridge. Heath cursed. They're signaling. We're in the net. Buck raised his rifle. Back up, slow and steady. Don't turn your back. Crash! A shape tore through the brush behind them. Massive. Fast. Charlie spun, fired a trank, missed. Duke lunged, barking ferociously. Then something hit Buck from behind, hard. He went down in a heap, rolling down the slope and into the ferns. Jessie screamed, "Buck!" Another figure exploded from the left, almost invisible in the mist. Heath tackled her to the ground just in time as it swiped, missing her by inches. The air reeked of musk and earth, and something sharp, like wet copper. Charlie fired again. This time the trank struck. The creature howled low and furious and crashed off through the trees, half limping. Then they were running. Heath grabbed Jessie and hauled her upright. "Move! Downhill into the creek bed!" They slid through ferns and underbrush, stumbling, gasping. Behind them, something howled again, angrier now. Blood drunk. Charlie caught up with them, panting, red-faced. "They're pushing us, hurting." Heath scanned the woods. "Where's Buck?" Jessie checked the drone monitor. No signal, no heat. They separated us. They reached the dry creek bed, breath ragged, hearts thundering. Duke snarled, then whimpered, his fur soaked in sweat and rain. Charlie dropped to his knees and listened. No footsteps, no birds, nothing. Jessie looked around. "Why stop now?" Heath's face went pale. "Because we're where they want us." Charlie raised his weapon just as the forest around them came alive with movement, shapes in the trees, eyes, too many. Jessie's voice shook. "They've been waiting." And then from the shadows, one of them stepped forward. It wasn't the alpha. It was smaller, younger, but in its massive hands it held Buck's hat. Torn, blood-stained. Heath whispered, "We're not in hunting grounds anymore." Charlie stared at the trees. "We're in the nest." The creature stood motionless at the edge of the creek bed, holding Buck's bloodied hat in one hand and watching them with eyes that shimmered amber in the shadows. Not just watching, studying. No one moved. Not Heath, not Charlie, not Jessie. Even Duke had gone rigid, growling low in his throat. Then slowly the creature turned and slipped back into the woods, vanishing like smoke. Jessie stepped forward. "It could have attacked. It didn't." Charlie nodded. "It wanted us to follow." Heath didn't lower his weapon, or it wanted us to think that. Charlie met his gaze. "We came here for answers. That's our invitation." Heath gritted his teeth but nodded. 2 minutes, in and out. First sign of a trap, we retreat. They moved carefully now, deeper into the pines. The forest grew older the farther they went. Trees thick with age, moss blanketing everything like a veil. The air was different here, heavier, sacred. Jessie whispered, "This is it, the true nest." Then they saw it, a clearing, circular, perfectly formed. The ground was lined with flattened grass and smoothed earth, as if something enormous had bedded down there for generations. Around the perimeter, totems hung from trees, woven from branches, bones, and animal hides. But they weren't random. They were symbols, arranged deliberately. Geometric patterns, variations of triangles, spirals, even a crude representation of a human figure scratched into bark. Heath knelt, eyes wide. "This is language." Charlie moved to one of the larger trees and ran his hand over the carvings. "No way this is just instinct, this is culture." Then Jessie found something else, half buried in the dirt. A backpack. She pulled it free. Inside were waterlogged maps, a cracked compass, and a faded ID tag. Charlie took it and read the name aloud. Ranger Daniel Estrada, missing since 1996. Jessie's voice was barely a whisper. "They don't just kill, they collect." Heath rose and scanned the clearing. "Look." In the center of the nest sat a mound of stone and earth, a cairn, atop it Buck's trank rifle. No blood, no sign of a body. Charlie stepped forward. "Either they want us to see what happens to intruders, or they're trying to make a point." Then from the trees above, a low groan echoed. Heath turned. From the canopy, the alpha stepped out of the shadows, walking upright, no fear, no urgency. It held nothing. It watched. Then slowly it pointed. Jessie followed its gesture toward a narrow trail barely visible through the ferns, disappearing into darkness. Charlie's heart pounded. It's guiding us. Heath lowered his weapon slightly, or giving us a choice. Jessie looked back. We go after Buck, Charlie nodded. We finish this. They stepped forward into the path. The alpha watched them pass. It did not follow, but from the trees, eyes watched from every shadow. As they vanished down the narrow trail, the forest swallowed the clearing again. Behind them, the wind picked up. The totems began to sway, and far in the distance, Buck screamed. The trail narrowed with each step. What began as a worn deer path soon twisted into something deeper, older. Not a trail made by boots, but by ritual. Trees leaned inward. The undergrowth fell away. Even the mist grew quiet here. Jessie flicked on her headlamp. The beam cut through the green-gray darkness, dancing off roots and damp stone. "This doesn't feel natural," she whispered. "It's not," Heath replied. Then they saw it, a chasm hidden beneath a ledge of earth and stone. Roots hung like tangled ropes over the edge. At the base, maybe 30 feet down, a faint flicker of firelight pulsed against the stone. Charlie peered over. "Looks like a cavern." Jessie glanced at the rock face. "There's an old mine near here. Could be connected." Heath was already tying off a rope. "We're out of time. Buck's in there." One by one, they rappelled down into the dark. The temperature dropped sharply as they descended. The smell changed, too. Wet stone, rot, and something like scorched hair. They hit the floor of the cavern in silence. Their lights revealed pictographs etched in soot along the walls, crude drawings of giant figures standing over smaller ones, arms raised, not in violence, but command. "Stories," Jessie whispered. "They're telling stories." A low groan echoed from deeper within. Buck. They moved quickly now, turning a corner, and froze. The nest. Unlike the surface clearing, this was something else entirely. Not wild. Not improvised. It was a chamber, circular, with high ceilings and evenly spaced stone pillars, ancient and worn smooth by time. Bones lined the walls, not just animals, human, arranged carefully, respectfully, and in the center, wrapped in woven pelts and vines, Buck lay unconscious. Jessie ran to him, checking his pulse. "Alive, weak," Charlie whispered. "Why didn't they kill him?" Then they heard it. Movement from the shadows. The alpha emerged. No aggression, no rush. It came forward and dropped something at Heath's feet, a weatherproof camera, the kind poachers or researchers use. The screen flickered to life. They watched. Footage played, dozens of clips. Men with guns, traps, fire. One clip showed a creature like the alpha being shot, crawling away as the men laughed. Another showed a smaller one, possibly young, caught in a steel snare. The final clip was of Buck himself, lowering his rifle, sparing one of the creatures in a moment of choice. Heath exhaled. "They're showing us why." Jessie looked at the alpha. "You're not animals." The creature didn't react, but its gaze lingered. Charlie helped Buck to his feet. "We need to leave, now." The alpha didn't stop them. It simply turned and walked back into the shadows. As they ascended from the cavern, the firelight below slowly dimmed, like a door closing. Back above ground, the forest had shifted. The air felt open again. No eyes in the dark, no whispers in the trees. Buck coughed and finally spoke, voice hoarse. "It didn't kill me. It watched me, like it was waiting for something." Charlie handed him water. Maybe it was waiting for us to understand. Back at the cabin, they packed in silence. The sun was setting, golden light breaking through the pine canopy. Birds were singing again. Jessie loaded the recovered footage onto a separate hard drive and sealed it in a case. "We have enough here to blow the lid off everything. Full exposure, national attention." Heath stared out into the woods. "Or we bury it. Let them be." Charlie looked from the trees to the footage. "You think they'll let us go just like that?" Heath shrugged. "They already did." Jessie looked down at the hard drive, thinking. Then she walked to the fire pit and tossed it in. The others stared. She said quietly, "We came for answers. We got them. They're not monsters. They're something older, smarter, and they're asking for space. Buck nodded slowly. Let 'em have it. As the flames consumed the evidence, the forest behind them rustled gently in the evening breeze, watching, waiting, but for now, at peace. 6 weeks later, the official report filed by Sheriff Ramsey listed the incident as an animal encounter, possibly a rogue black bear. No missing persons were recovered, though remains were sent to the state lab for DNA analysis. The lab returned the results as inconclusive, with traces of unknown primate markers. That file never made it to public record. The state quietly closed off 3,000 acres of forest under the guise of fire damage remediation. Trailheads were blocked, rangers reassigned, helicopter flyovers banned, and the case was closed. But in a small farmhouse at the edge of Red River County, Charlie kept a worn notebook tucked in a drawer beside his bed. Inside, sketches of the totems, notes from the clearing, GPS coordinates. He never added to it, never took it out, but he never threw it away. Charlie spoke less, drank more. Sometimes he'd catch Duke staring out into the woods behind the shop, ears perked, tail low. Once in the dead of night, he swore he saw something move between the trees, a flash of amber eyes, too tall, too still. He didn't go outside to check. Jessie turned down her PhD grant. She left the university. Took up a job in East Texas guiding eco-tours and trail conservation. Every so often, she'd find a symbol carved into a tree that hadn't been there the week before. Always near her campsites. Always just out of reach. She never told the tourists. As for Heath, he vanished again. Last anyone heard, he'd gone north into British Columbia, tracking rumors from native tribes about forest spirits and walking shadows. He left no forwarding address. But a package arrived one day on Jessie's porch. A flash drive. A photo of a familiar totem hanging from a snowy cedar tree, and one line written on a note, "They're not just here." Back in Red River, the forest grew thick again, swallowing the trails, reclaiming the clearings. One morning, Sheriff Ramsey found a bundle of branches arranged on his porch. It was shaped like a triangle. Inside it, a small stone, carved with the letter R. He didn't report it. He just stared at the tree line for a long, long time, and the woods watched him back. Thanks so much from Cryptid Monologues for watching. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to hit that like button and share your thoughts in the comments below. Make sure to subscribe and click the notification bell so you never miss an update. And hey, while you're here, check out these videos. You'll definitely love them. See you in the next one.